coming every Thursday night it's a pleasure to come together and learn. These days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur are extremely precious days. Each day is Dirshu Hashem B'Yimatzai. These are days B'chinas Hashem is here, very, very precious days, and to share them with friends and to share a few thoughts is precious. I want to share, whenever we try to study together, of course it's important to say things that are really dvarim hayotzim min halev. To just talk stam, it's not going to work. I'll tell you something funny, that yearly I get to go to Eretz Yisrael, and in Eretz Yisrael, the guys, we all get together, and there are hundreds of guys there, and you wanna connect and say what a guy needs to hear, and it's a lot of pressure. It's very overwhelming. We're meeting a lot of people. We're getting together, and to say the proper thing, a relative of mine who was very close to Reb Nosson Tzvi Finkel, was like a shtickle son. His own father was somewhat out of his life, and to a degree, and Reb Nosson Tzvi Finkel was like a father figure for him. And he told me Reb Nosson Tzvi Finkel was coming somewhere, and he was afraid to go to Reb Nosson Tzvi Finkel, because if he'll see him and he won't be as enthusiastic as this friend of mine likes, it's going to be like, oh. I was like so excited. So, shalom, shalom. Next, like, you're my father. You're like Reb Nosson Tzvi. He was very, very afraid of that. He described to me meeting him, pushing to go, and Reb Nosson Tzvi mamish said the thing he needed to hear. And what I always try to tell myself is you have no choice but to be real. You have no choice but to be real. I'll give you another example of this. Certain times in your life, you have no choice but to be real. If I say anything that's not real, you're going to have to say just brief, and it's got to come, otherwise it's going to be sin. Okay, shkayach. So you have no choice but to tap into a place and make sure you're calm and focused and able to tap into real. I once went to a court case of a friend of mine who was already sentenced guilty, and now the only question was how many years he would get. Now people don't realize in the American court system how powerful the judge is. If you don't study it carefully, you think it's a jury system. Judges have crazy power. This lady, this intelligent lady, the jury said the guy's guilty. She does sentencing. She could go from 1 year to 30 years. And it's totally up to her. And it's based on how she feels, how much he regrets it. It's based how much, and you have character witnesses who testify about him. Now, I was asked one time in my life, I was a character witness for a guy. Now, you have to picture, you're visualizing the scene. First of all, what's he to do? Say, I regret it? Every single person who's going for sentences, I regret it. You just sound stupid. Shkayach, 30 years. No, I really regret it. Of course. The only thing he could do is be real. He has to mean it, and it will just come across. Any pretend if I regret it, you're just like, then it's garnished. The only eitzah is he has to spend hours and get into that place that he means it, that he regrets. It's the only eitzah. Character witnesses. Every guy has 3 friends. So you have 3 character witnesses. Shkayach. He's wonderful, tremendous guy. Shkayach. 30 years. The only eitzah is when you get up to speak. You cannot never have times you speak like that where your only eitzah is to be real. We've all had simchas. We wanted to thank our wife. Now it's the obligatory thank you. And I want to thank, we've all made a bris, and I want to thank my wife. The only eitzah is you better be real. Now what does it mean to be real? You better pause and think. The rest of you speak, darshan, whatever you want. You said that thank you. The entire room will sense when it's a bunch of hogwash. You said I go yearly and I speak in my son's yeshiva. I had 3 sons whose lives were changed in a yeshiva, and yearly I'm speaking. They have to thank them. I want to thank you. You have such an impact. Everybody be quiet. Every speaker. I'm more inspired. You inspired me more than I inspired. Like okay. The only eitzah to do that task is to so plug in to the place that you mean and try. It's hard to be very authentic in public. And to plug in a very authentic way. So this is the easiest shiur I find because it's close friends. I find it easier to just be real. And certainly always the goal is to even though you're speaking, it's hard to stand in front of a crowd and say things that you're feeling and connected to. But that's the attempt. This topic of tshuva, to get up and thunder, Rabbi Say, to thunder anything, no. Tshuva is very, very personal. It's very real. We're holding in very precious, serious days, Aseres Yimei Tshuva. To get up in front of my friends, I'm close to Rav Aaron for years. To get up and start, Rabbis, Kalish, you okay? You can't, tshuva is a serious topic. I want to say something to the chevra that I'm thinking it's on my mind a lot. I hope with Siyata D'Shmaya it comes out the right way, and I want to share something that I've been thinking a lot about, that I hope it's something I'm thinking about. I hope this is helpful for you. So I want to share this, Menachem. It's brief, will not be long tonight, but I hope it's brief and meaningful. That's my hope. So after that long-winded introduction, let's get to it. The Gemara in Rosh Hashanah Yud Zayin says as follows. Rava Amar, Rava says, there's going to be brief yitz, and you'll be happy that you came out of the sickbed and came. You'll be happy you did it. I do think so. Rava Amar, Kol ha'maver al midaisav. Whoever is maver al midaisav, Rashi says the word mavir is ein medaktik. It's not careful to people who pain him, and he lets go of it. Whoever is meichel lets go of tainas on other people. Mavir le'al kol pishav. Hashem's meichel him. If we're meichel others, we let go of our tainas on others. Hashem's meichel us. Shenemar noisei avain. Hashem forgives. Va'over al pesha, and He forgives. Double lashon. Says Rabbi, lemi noisei avain. Who does Hashem forgive? Lemi she'over al pesha. Somebody who's meichel others. I have the following kasha, Rabbi said. Every day in Shemona Esrei I read Baruch Atah Hashem Aroitza B'Tshuva. Hashem wants tshuva. He's right, he wants it, obviously he's Mekabel Tshuva, he accepts Tshuva. So Rabbi said, does it ever say to somebody who's Meichel others? Since when is there a caveat? There's something called Tshuva, a gift. Hashem gifted me and you, a gift we sorely need, Tshuva. That we can do Tshuva, that we can always come back. And we have a gift of, did it ever say, did you ever hear like a right said b'shuva, L'misha Meichel others? Tshuva is a gift of tshuva. All of a sudden comes the Gemara Rosh Hashanah and it says, who does Hashem forgive? Somebody who forgives others. Tshuva has a caveat. Let's say I'm not so good at forgiving others. What is this inyan that if you meichel others, Hashem's meichel you? I thought tshuva works straight. It works. Now all of a sudden it's not so simple. If you don't let others do tshuva, so you don't. Alright, so Hashem accepts tshuva. Since when does it have like an asterisk next to it? So well, sometimes if you're meichel, I never knew tshuva works like that. That's my kasha. Question number 2. The Rambam, I could have quoted Gemara. Let's learn it from the Rambam. Hilchos Tshuva, Perek Beis. The Rambam says as follows. He says, Tshuva and Yom Kippur don't help. They only help on Averis Min Adam L'Makom. Tshuva and Yom Kippur helps on Averis Min Adam L'Makom. If you ate Davar Aser, Baal Be'ila Asur Ki Yitzibem. But Averis Min Adam L'Chaveroi, Averis to man, a nimchaloi la'olam ashitim l'chaver mashu chayv l'v'yirtzeyu. Ben adam l'chavera, you got to make retribution and you got to appease the person. Ben adam l'chavera. He says even if you paid back the guy, tzarich l'rtzoisa, you have to appease him and ask mechila. He says even if you just mock the person, tzarich l'faisa, you have to appease him and beg him v'lifgaya bayad shimchaloi. He says if your friend doesn't want to be meichel, you bring people from his friends, and they ask, get his friends, talk to his friends how much you regret it, and they should ask him. If it doesn't help, the Rambam brings another eitzah. Then the Rambam says, Asur la'adam liyos achzari. You're not allowed to be cruel. It's asur to be cruel and not to be moichel. If somebody's trying to ask mechila, accept it. Don't be cruel. And the Rambam writes, Zehu darkam shezelu Yisrael. That's the way of Yidden. That Yidden, when people ask them mechila, they're moichel. Goyim orle halev. They have some deficiency of the heart. Einan kain, they're not that way. Elav evras and shamra netzach. It's a goyish shemida. Somebody's upset that you're upset at somebody. You're not moichel. They ask mechila, no. And he brings from the Gevonim that since they weren't moichel, they weren't allowed into the Jewish nation. So Zera Yisrael, the Rambam says, to be moichel. Why is it so hard to be moichel? It's question 2. Why is it hard to him? Somebody asks mechila, he feels badly. He still feels badly. He says, mamish, mechila, we're not talking about a game. We're talking about serious. We're all going to ask a beautiful minhag Yisrael. Before Yom Kippur, people ask each other mechila, and people mean it. Ernst the Yidden. He says, I want to ask mechila. Why is it so hard? It's a midah of Yidden. A guy you can't be moichel. I'm moichel you. What's the problem? Question 3 says, don't be cruel. Don't be an achsar. I want to know the nature. It's an interesting choice. Could have called the guy a Russian not to be moichel. What's this achzarius? What's the cruelty? Now, simple pshat to cruelty, and that you're cruel, is simple pshat is he's going to get punished because of you. So don't be an achzar. Is that the achzarius? What's the achzarius? The Rambam says asur to be an achzar and not to accept mechila. Why is that cruelty? What is that? What is that? It's not asur to be stubborn, call it. What's the cruelty of not being moichel? Anybody who reads Rabbeinu Yoina, the first parak, the Pshar Rishon Shari Tshuva is incredible. And most of the things he says are relatable and like powerful for tshuva. He has a whole bunch of plans of tshuva, eitzes for tshuva. He has 20 ikarim for tshuva, and most of them are very doable. Most of them. Every friend I've ever met, I asked my chevra, don't let me bully you, but he has his 6th ikar is like when you read it, it's a little overwhelming. I don't want to say depressing, it's overwhelming. He describes in charat and regret, you have to have busha, you're embarrassed. He brings the pasuk, Boishti v'gam nechlamti, ki nasasi cherpas nurai. I have such a sin, I'm embarrassed from it. Now we all have an aveir, we have shame. It's like an aveir, most of our aveir is embarrassed. Oh, it's overwhelming. But he describes it further. He goes further, hachlama, he describes hishtana ziv panav, you're like bushed out of your brains. He describes charata, that is murder for any person to feel on his averis, murder. Levels of charata that are expected for averis, tremendously hard levels that a person mamish. We understand ourselves in sin. We understand that we have frailty and flaws, and we say, Hashem, you know my frailties. And here, the Rabbeinu Yoina writes the level of charata you have to have. So Menachem, I want to say like this. This is what I want to say. I want to describe why it's so hard to forgive somebody else. I want to describe it. When me and you have a situation, we literally have 2 narratives to the same story. Always. Take any person you've had difficulties with. You have 2 stories, legamri, 2 different versions of what happened. And part of the art of asking mechila is I see your side, I wronged you. But I don't think it's almost impossible to ask the proper mechila. Because I can never be you. Even saying, I'm sorry, I hear what I did wrong, but I don't have your perspective, I have my perspective. Now I can hear how I did wrong, but I still was living my story. I understand my own narrative of the story. Think about any difficult situation you have. The other person literally has a different story than you. Who's right? It's complicated. You have your narrative, they have their version. They experience the exact thing differently. Even when you ask mechila, and the art of asking mechila is to understand somebody else. You could say over their story. Let me say over what you experienced. And you can give the story they experienced. But there'll typically be a shortcoming in your I'm sorry. That's how you asked Mechila, you killed me, you destroyed me. Even you understand you did wrong, but not with the intensity that they experienced it. That's the difficulty of asking Mechila. So any Mechila is a deep attempt to understand the other person's narrative, to really get in there, and as best as possible to try to come out of our own selves. It's a tremendous art to ask Mechilas. I hear your story, and I acted inappropriately. I can really hear it. I really hear it. Could I become you? I can't. Now, in as much as you can negate your own narrative, it is as powerful as your Mechila. What's so hard of anybody accepting Mechila is you don't mamish feel what I feel, because you're you, and you still have your story. The art of accepting a Mechila, the story of two people accepting, is since you validate my right from my perspective, you validate it. I sense that you're trying to get my perspective. I'm going to try to get your perspective. I accept your Mechila. There's an art. And Yidden, the same Yid who asks Mechila grants Mechila. The achzarius, the cruelty of not granting Mechila, is you're not coming off your perspective. He asked you Mechila, he was trying to come to you. The cruelty is the pshat that you're stuck in you. That's an achzarius. Kindness is I think you. Cruelty is I only think me. Not accepting Mechilas, that's how you ask Mechila for what I feel you. Yeah, but he has a different story. If I sense, if you're not sushtel, if you're not giving me a right, by the way, la lachatz mevur, if a person doesn't ask you Mechila, you're not mechuyev to be Michael. If they don't validate your right to a story, I don't think you can be Michael. If somebody doesn't validate that I have a right to experience what I experience, I don't know if a human being is capable. I don't know. It's probably shayach, you're not mechuyev for sure. The Yisayid of Mechila is I have my perspective. And when I ask you Mechila, it means I hear what you're looking at. You to grant me Mechila is to say that I'm not sure your Mechila is the intensity that you mamish me. I don't think you're me. You're still like from your perspective hearing mine. I'll meet you halfway. I grant Mechila. I'm Michael. The achzar, the cruel person, the asker of Mechila bent and tried and made some effort. It's always easy. That's the effort. That's as if they tried. Again, I grant that it has to be, I was entitled. If it's some form of Mechila, and we'll always be able to say, well, that's not even an attempt. Don't be an achzar. They made an attempt. Says the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah as follows. If somebody's meichel others, he's maver al midaisav. Somebody wrongs and I'm meichel. The art of Mechila is to hear his perspective. So then Hashem's meichel me. We ask the kasha, tshuva's objective. The answer is, if we would have the charata, the way the Rabbeinu Yoina writes it, there's no vert that if you're meichel, Hashem's meichel you. I did tshuva. The problem in all our regret is it's very hard to let go of our perspective. Now we have to try. To really ask Mechila, you have to understand how great we are, that we're big time, we're big people, and to really ask Mechila is we're shaykh to live very, very big. That's very hard for us. I'm so frail and flawed. You want me to be perfect? We struggle with how big we really are and can be. We struggle to acknowledge that. And in struggling to acknowledge, to start, Ezra HaSefer says, I can't look at you because of my chatan. He's yored to his greatness, to the neshama that burns inside of him. And he could say to Hashem, I know who I am. That I did that thing. I can't believe it. I'm so embarrassed I did that. For us to come out of ourselves, we know our story. We know and we're in touch with our weaknesses. Now we have to try. Charata is the attempt to chap. We're powerful, we're precious human beings. Very, very special human beings. And charata is the attempt to try that. Now, will Hashem meet us halfway? If our charata is not the charata of Rabbeinu Yoina, I couldn't fully come out of myself. I have my narrative and my story and my weaknesses. And the answer is the Gemara Rosh Hashanah. If you're Meichel others, so you show a willingness to meet halfway. You try to understand me, I'll meet you halfway. Hashem's Meichel us. When we have a charata that might fall short of Rabbeinu Yona's charata, but we're making an attempt to see what we should be, what we could be, Hashem says, I'll meet you halfway. You met somebody else halfway, I'll meet you halfway also. That's what I believe the Pshat in Rosh Hashanah, in the Gemara Rosh Hashanah. I wanted to share this with everybody here. There's a beautiful Minig Yisrael, a holy Minig Yisrael before Yom Kippur. Friends ask each other Mechila. I wanted to broadcast what's happening when we ask Mechila. I wanted to explain it. I want us all to be big people, to be the people, to be godly. And a godly person is capable of living somebody else, of understanding. The art of asking Mechila to somebody is to say that I mamish hear your story. I could hear your story. I could hear your... It's very, very hard because we don't live their story. But some way, I could hear. I hear what you experience. And I made mistakes. I can ask that and say it and chazer it and hear the mistake from the place you're living, stark. And if we ask and make a deep attempt and validate the other's perspective, so then we ask them, accept my mechila, meet me halfway. Say, I know from your perspective my mechila is woefully short. From your perspective you should be mamish embarrassed, but the problem is I'm me. And I'm trying and I hear you, and the hearing you makes me feel badly. I have a regret. I feel badly what I did. The extent that you want me to feel, I don't know if I can feel, I don't know if I can. So you try, you make every attempt, and in as much as we could pull ourselves, the problem is that we're so used to ourselves. Your same difficulty in accepting my mechila is my same difficulty in asking the mechila. My difficulty in asking the mechila that you want is because I can't fully give up my perspective. Your difficulty in accepting my mechila is you can't give up your perspective. Let's meet halfway. I'll ask you mechila, but real. Not I'm saying you're meichel. Your meichel means you have a perspective. I hear, I've thought about this. I hear how you experience this. And I feel badly in what you experience. And I see the mistakes I made. That's why you asked mechila for the mistakes you made. You murdered me. You ended my life. I'm trying. I hear. I did wrong. I really hear I did wrong. The extent you want me to hear, I don't know. I'm trying. Please, I'm trying. I ask you to meet me halfway. I'll ask you mechila, and I mean it. And I really hear you have a perspective. And I'm trying hard to let go of mine. But I ask you, your same difficulty letting go of yours, I'm had struggle letting go of mine. So I ask you, I'll meet you somewhere, let's meet. But it has to be a real meeting. It has to be, there's a serious attempt to hear another perspective. At the point you don't mean anything, you're stuck in your own perspective. You didn't ask mechili, has no chiv to say. And it's easy for us all, to people who ask us mechil, say, that's not an attempt. Don't be azam machmir. Meet halfway. That is an attempt. They're asking mechila, they're clearly saying that I feel I wronged you. They're clearly saying that. So they're trying to see your perspective. That means it registers. The exact extent, I've seen this, the extent that we want, that's the mechila we wanted. If you saw what I saw, you'd be on your hand, you'd be bushed out of your brains, you'd come to me, you'd be bawling like a baby. So you're not saying it my way. I'm probably not. That's the difficulty, and I'm trying. That's why I'm asking mechila, because I see you have a perspective. I'm probably not the intensity you have and want for me to have. It's very hard, because that's a mechila. For the intensity you want, that's the way you ask mechila. It's almost impossible to ask with the intensity of the one who experienced it, because I don't have their perspective. But I'm working, and I hear there's another perspective. I'm trying, but I don't live that perspective. It's an attempt. I beg you, meet me halfway. I beg you. I ask mechila, please accept my mechila. You ask me mechila, I'll accept yours. Hashem sees Yidden are each one's seeing the other's perspective, granting a right for another perspective. He's moichlas on our averis, even when our charata falls short. Even when if Kifi the Charata should be, you really should be able to come out of your own, but we're so stuck in our perspective. If we weren't so stuck, we'd be bushed out of our brains, and we try to see how precious our neshama. You have to feel how holy you are. It's very difficult. The right tshuva, and if we tapped into what we are, and what we are, be'etzem, we would have a tremendous busha. Such a mala, such a big being did that, we would have a busha. But it's very hard. I know how frail, I know all my challenge, I know my yetzahar. So, Hashem, it's hard for me to be embarrassed like you want me to be, because I hold on to my perspective. Now there's an art to seeing the MS and to letting go, and there's an art, and we make attempts. But Hashem will meet us. Your Meichel others means you met somewhere. You are willing to meet, Hashem will meet us too. He gives tshuva. L'mi noisav, l'mi shayver al pesha. So I wanted to share this with the Chevra as one thought that was important to me. I feel very badly, and it's on my mind a lot, that we weren't together Rosh Hashanah. I have a place that I have to go. This is my home, this is my friends, and this is where I feel tremendous achrayas. L'maisa, my parnasa, simply a parnasa thing, I have to be there. That, for starters, my parnasa is there. I also there, if I'm not here, the shul's still open, I came back. If I wouldn't be there, the nature of the achrayas there, it's not so pashut, it would be open after Rosh Hashanah. So there's also practical consideration. That's probably why it's a parnasa and here is not. But l'maisa, I have to be there Rosh Hashanah, and I feel badly. So I want to share something Rosh Hashanah. Now you say there's meaner than not being here Rosh Hashanah, sharing something after Rosh Hashanah. So I want to say that's not true. Because I'm going to say a vart that's deep. If it sounds chassidish, tough luck, and good, and it's true. So I want you to hear this. The Gemara says in Rosh Hashanah that Dirshu Hashem bi matzai, seek, listen to this subtlety, Yitz, seek Hashem when He's close, Elu eser yamim shebein Rosh Hashanah li Yom Kippur. Chevra, are there 10 days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur? And not 10 days. There's 7. So you say, that means with Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, only 7 days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Every day of the week we're mechaper. Today we're mechaper for all Thursdays. Tomorrow all Friday. There's 7 days. So what I mean, Elu Eser Yamim Shebein. So the smart guy says it means including Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. The problem is for anybody who's sensitive to the language, it's not how it should write it. It should say, Dirshu Hashem bimatzu, Elu Hayamim Shemei Rosh Hashanah ad Yom Kippur. Don't say Eser Yamim Bein Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. The 10 days that are between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, they're not 10 days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. The way to say it's the 10 days from Rosh Hashanah until Yom Kippur. That's like how to talk. It's not the 10 days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur only have 7 days between them. It's not the way to talk. Daniel, you hear what I'm saying? The way to talk is Elu Eser Yamim Mei Rosh Hashanah ad Yom Kippur. That's just the way to talk. So the pshat is like this. The pshat is that Rosh Hashanah is 2 days of tshuva, Yom Kippur is a day of tshuva, they're 10 days. But there's a concept called Rosh Hashanah and a concept called Yom Kippur. Besides the days of tshuva, there's an idea called Rosh Hashanah. There are 10 days that we live in between these two ideas. It doesn't mean the day of Rosh. If it meant the day of Rosh Hashanah, you'd say 7 days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. There are 10 days of tshuva that are bookended by an idea called Rosh Hashanah and an idea called Yom Kippur. Rosh Hashanah starts the 10 days as an idea, and Yom Kippur culminates the 10 days, and there's an idea. On Yom Kippur, most of my friends will be together Yom Kippur. On Yom Kippur, Be'ez Hashem, I'll have Siyata D'Shmaya. I want to share what the idea of Yom Kippur is. I want to nail what Rosh Hashanah is. I want to nail it. I don't want to say, we should have been together, Gavriel, the whole time. Gzeiris Hashem not. But so why am I sharing it today? Because we're living in the time period between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. The 10 days are the time period that are bookended. So we're supposed to have Rosh Hashanah now. So I'm sharing Rosh Hashanah because we're living Bein Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. That's the days we're in. So I want to share with you Rosh Hashanah. I want to say it, Avi, in the briefest way possible. And this year, Rosh Hashanah, this thought hit me without any guzma. I almost fell to the floor. Without a guzma. And I want to explain, very simple. We do three things in Shmares. We have Malchus, Zichroinus, and Shofars. And the Gemara explains. Malchus is Mamlech Hashem. Malchus, Mamlech Hashem. Zichroinus is Hashem is thinking about us, is judging us. And if you say Zichroinus, it brings our Zeichel Ufanav L'Toiv, causes him to remember us in a good way. Which question one is, why would that saying that? Saying Malchus, I was Mamlech Hashem. I announced Hashem as the king. Saying he judges me, makes him judge me favorably. What's that? And then you say, how you Mamlech Hashem b'shofar. So it should be Zichroinus, it should be Malchus Shofar. The shofar is the way we coronate Hashem. B'ma b'shofar. So what's happening here? What's Malchus Zichroinus Shofar? Shofar is in the wrong place. Shofar should be after Malchus, the way we coronate Hashem. If Sadia Goin's first pshat, printed in almost every siddur, is Yamamlech Hashem with the shofar. So should be Malchus Shofar, then Zichroinus. And we're so out of touch with Hashem. We're about Him, He's about us. What's get done? The day of Rosh Hashanah, we blow a shofar, we're remembering the Akedah. But specifically, we're remembering the Ayil Shel Yitzchak. Why Yitzchak's Ayil? The story of the Akedah is incredible. Avram Avinu has an idealism, and he gives it all for God. You can't picture he gave up Yitzchak. He gave up every shul to picture. He gave up our shul. You have to picture he gave up every yeshiva. He gave up all our families. He gave up everything for Hashem. That's the Akedah Yitzchak. Everything. Do you know a person who gives up the Olam Haba for Hashem? Anything people do is they get more Olam Haba, ding ding, and they're getting rich there. There's nobody who gave the Olam Haba. Avram Avinu is the only one in history, because he said more than Olam Haba is the Jewish people. Mochana Wasserman describes this. He's the only person who was willing to give up his whole nitzchi. More than Olam Haba is he wanted children, wanted a Tyrus, and he gave it all up. I was once at an Eisha Torah convention in Yisrael, and one guy got up and he said, Reb Noach, I wish Rebbe could have seen this. Like he would have gone out of camp to see. There were tons of Talmidim, and he felt like Reb Noach didn't live to see this. Another Talmud gets up, he makes him achai, he says, you don't understand, Rebbe saw it, that's why it is. He did say it. All his dream was this, it's happening because Rebbe saw it. That was the second guy's macha, was wonderful. Avram Avinu saw all this, that's what he was building. He saw our beautiful people, that's what he was driving for. He saw it. And Shechting Yitzchak gives it all up for Hashem. Ki b'Yitzchak yikar l'chazara, every yeshiva, shul, the whole idealism, kaput. That's the Akedah. Afterwards, Hashem says, no, don't Shech Yitzchak, keep your future, give me the ayil. It's like one of the most anticlimactic. What's it doing there? Hishachte Nayel, Mazel Tov, Gesundheit, Shkoyach. So what? And the shofar is the shofar shel Ayil. The Akedah is big deal. What's the shofar? The Ayil. What's the Ayil? The Ayil's bubkis. Hishachte, it wasn't even his dach. He found it in the tree. Like Chach, he gave a few dollars. He found one in the tree and brought it. Wow. You ever wondered, Maish? It's a strange. The Ayil part of the story is like a pella. And the story is like this. The Akedah is Malchus. It's all about God. You give up your own avodah. Avram gave up his own avodah. It's all Hashem. Einoid Movadi. There's only Hashem. That's the Akedah. Malchus. It's all about Hashem. I'm batal u'mevatul to you, Hashem. That's Malchus. That's the Akedah Yitzchak. Then Hashem says, no, I don't want you to give up. Bring an ayil. I value your avodah. You matter and count. Within the context that you're mevatel to Hashem, you count. You know why you count? Because He wants our avodah. We're mamlechim, so we're busy with God. We think Hashem, I'm being selfless. People struggle. Do you ask for your own needs in Rosh Hashanah? Yearly, all of us, let's read. Should I ask? Shouldn't I? I do. I feel guilty. Well, I send the prayers we ask for our needs. You ask for your needs more than most of the year. All year, you're not allowed to ask for your needs in the first three brachas. On Rosh Hashanah, in the first brachas, Achreinu L'chaim. Modna Maisa. We ask at the end of Shemana, so we ask for our needs. Isn't it all about Hashem? Yeah. Avinu Malkeinu, we're asking like crazy. Good, we're asking like crazy for our needs. So what's get done? The pshat is like this. We're thinking about Hashem, Mamlech Hashem. What's He thinking about? Our minds are on Him. What's He thinking about? Zichreinus. People think Zichreinus, it's such a silly pshat. Hashem's judging us. Some word karna, He's busy, He's like being tough. How does Zichreinus end? You ever notice the Chasima Baruch Atah Hashem? Should be, He's like looking at all my affairs. It says Zoicher Abris. He remembers our tremendous treaty. He remembers the closeness of a human being to Hashem. Zoicher Abris. I was like thinking about all my affairs. Zichreinus, Zeicher Kolam is Balufanav. Zichreinus that Hashem is busy with us. Pashup Shat. This is not new. This is not like for these days. This is for always. Zichreinus says that we count, and Hashem cares about our avodah. We're thinking about Him, and He's thinking about us. And in thinking about Him, like, 1 second, what does He want? What's He busy with? I'm thinking about you, King. I'm focused on you. What are you doing? You're judging. Oh, you want my actions. That's the Ayil Shal Yitzchak. The Akedah is the willingness to go my own avoid. It's all you, God. I'll give up everything for you, Hashem. The Ayil Shal Yitzchak is I want your avodah. So now watch. Malchias v'mamlech Hashem. But what is that? We're thinking about Hashem. Where does that bring us to Zichreinus? What's He busy with? My actions matter. I pick up the shofar, the Ayil Shal Yitzchak, and I coronate, and my actions matter. He wants us. He wants us. He wants us. He wants us. I want to tell you a story. In the early years of the yeshiva, 22 years ago, I was making my father a sima. It could be Yitzhak Rabinowitz was there. I was making my father a sima shas. I'm going to be honest. This is the truth. When we have guests come to our shtat, I feel like a geiva. They meet Gabriel, they meet the Chev, they meet Ravavi. I feel arrogant. We live in a holy place. It's impressive. You know, the tzvi joy, each maish joy. Now I feel like very proud. I love when people come to our city. I like showing it off. Yeah, this is where I live. You know, like people have gedolim pictures in their house and they're always in the picture. You just want all the guests to chap who your company is. Like, I'm not going to speak about myself. I just ask you to see in every gadol picture who's with them. I'm just every gadol picture of the house, like his head's like neatly in there. He's not speaking who he is. You know, he's a shtickle humble, but he wants people to get. So I like people come to the shtat. People have come here. They say this place, it looks like the selection committee of who gets to come. One mishpach, beautiful families. Naira. I'm very proud of the community. I like where I live. When I moved here 22 years, I'm going to be honest, it was a very interesting town. My father's Siyam Hashas, if you saw the crowd, it was fascinating. It was fascinating. The crowd was really interesting people. I'm not knocking their most of them. I don't mean to mock. And I've come to say those were the best people in the world. And I mean ernst that they changed my life. I learned to be more understanding. I learned to see others' perspective. They were beautiful people. People that we developed relationships to. And people in Olam Haba, not chas v'shalom, not to say any point, let alone on these 10 days, to mock a yid. They're beautiful people. I was a baby and insecure, and my parents came, being a young insecure person, it was insecure for me. Today, I would the exact people I would pick out. To have a shtat like Waterbury, they were the ones to build on, a shtat that's about every person's precious and counts. They started this city. It's built, they get zicher, get schar zicher. They're reaping benefits of something that they accepted. By the way, talk about seeing another's perspective. The way these Yidden accepted us, we were weirdos. We were these frummies, these funny guys from Brooklyn. You inevitably, I never lived in Brooklyn, never came from Brooklyn. I was a Brooklyn guy. Stop correcting you, from Brooklyn, right? Sonny, it felt good to feel very young. You were always very young. And Sonny, you're from Brooklyn. I just stopped correcting. I'm from, fine. I didn't correct you. If you were here, if you had white shirt, you're from Brooklyn. That's what they knew. So I was from Brooklyn. And we were weirdos. I remember the first Kiddush, they told us there's going to be a Kiddush. They were raving about their Kiddushim. So I was going, I was ready for a Cholent, Rav Avi Kiddush, Cholent, Kugel, Avi's Kishka, Nair. I was ready for the Kiddush. I never saw a funnier Kiddush in my life. Like the big, they were talking about the big Kiddush. was like the strangest foods. There was not one food that I'm using. It was a milchi kiddush. It was very interesting. We were the weirdos. Kishka by a kiddush, cholent, and they were so nice to us and accepted our world. L'maisim, I was making my father see Mashas. My parents used the word. My mother said, "What a motley crew." She wasn't there. My parents love Yidden. My father, the night before Siyum Hashas, there's a wonderful lady, Tzadekah. She's a very regular person. Her only funny thing is an interesting name. There's a wonderful Tzadekah whose name is Noah. My father, the night before, told my wife, I'd never met a Noah. I never met a Noah. It's one of the daughters. We're Zaycha that Moshe's wife has one of the names of the daughters of Tzlafchad. But my father said to my mother, night before Siyum Hashas, I never met a Noah. And sure enough, in our beautiful Chevra, there was a Noah, a wonderful lady. Still a wonderful person. But Lemaisa, it was a unique crowd, an interesting, diverse crowd. My mother called Motley. She wasn't making fun either. My parents loved Yidden. It was a very diverse crowd. And I was working like not to be embarrassed. I was a young kid. And you're insecure. Who's your neighbor's insecurity, complete insecurity. And I want to say that that's us human beings with Hashem. The world's a murdic place. You know, Rosh Hashanah was the sixth day of creation. It was as human beings. The world was created Chafei Elul. And human beings, we're a motley crew, my friends. The grass always is loyal to Hashem, and so are the trees, and so are the birds. They never defy. The whole barrier is loyal to Hashem. We're insecure. We're embarrassed who our neighbors are. That's like saying who I am. We're amazingly insecure. We're uncomfortable. I've done interviews. I have to humor myself. I do hundreds of interviews, and I have to enjoy. It's not, I don't want to dry. So I have my own things to enjoy. One of my favorite parts of interviews, you have a young 15-year-old bacher, and he's totally embarrassed from his normal mom. Anything she says, you could picture the kid. He's like to his mother, as if I don't see. He's like, stop, don't say that, don't move this way. Ma! He's like making gyrations at head. It cracks me up. He's a youngster. His mother, like, she moved. Azoi is like, he must not be cool. Like, I'm probably for sure convinced. I thought his mother's a very wonderful person. His dad, the father, dared, said this. The amount of kids, the different motions. The eyes that could like just rip it up. The kid, you could see him say with that look at dad, we discussed this in the car, like, don't talk, Tati, don't. Like, I see the look. He looks at his father. I know the conversation was before. Okay, so that's a little fun by the interviews. We're frail human beings, insecure, with all different frailties. And the creation of the world, Rosh Hashanah, Hashem says, this is my crew. I'm going to battle with these. He wants us, Rabbi say. We're mamlechem, and he's zechraynis. He's thinking about our deeds. He wants us. And we daven for our needs in context, because we're Avdei Hashem, our needs are important. It's important for one context. Malchi is zechraynis. And Shofris is after you chap zechraynis. We're thinking about him, he's thinking about us, you then blow the aisle. That's the Akedah. The Akedah is Avram gives up the old idealism. What are we? Ma'anu, ma'chayenu. Gives up his idealism for Hashem. Hashem then gives him the aisle. I always wonder, what's the aisle? The ram, like, it's such like a bad ending to us. So who cares he brings the aisle? Is the lesson that I want your avodah. That which is in your world, that which is shaykh to you, I want your avodah. You gave up your avodah, that's the akedah. The aisle is I want your avodah. That's in your realm, that's in it. It's precious to me. And Hashem wants our avodas. Malchi is Zechraynis. And Zechraynis empowers us to blow the shofar, to be Mamlech Hashem. We have a place in the Melucha. And as such, our needs, we ask for our needs in that context. So I think that brings us stark into the rest. Remember, Aseres Yimei Tshuva is Bein Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. If we don't have Rosh Hashanah, it's built on this Rosh Hashanah, on how important we are and precious we are. People think you're being like very cool. You say, oh, we're such good, we're so important, like shkoyach. It's a tremendous chumrah, tremendous chumrah. We like that we're not big. I realize we don't have charat because I'm so small. We like how small we are. When we hear Hashem like wants our kiddush shemayim, we are the only bria that's mamlech Hashem. On day one, Adam Rishon went around to the whole bria and he said, Nevarcha Hashem Elokeinu. Let us bench. She went around to every braid. You guys, he said, you guys don't choose to coronate Hashem. You have no other choice. Us frail human beings, in a miracle of creation, we actually have a choice not to accept His Malchus. It's called Bechira. It's a miracle of creation. Without Hashem, we don't exist. It's a stira. It makes no sense. Xeris HaKasav. Choice, free will. We have the power to coronate Hashem and not to. And we blow that shofar. Zechrayna speaks about our power to yes or no, and Hashem wants to bury you, that frail human being who has power to yes or no. He wants us. And then from that place we get busy. Let's go, let's figure out how we could do better. We're precious and wanted. The Melech chose us. Who knows our frailties, and he wants us. He says, this is my crew. I would love to go back, if I could rewind and say to those people, I'd love to say, you're my chevra, you're mine, I want to tie my life. I'm going to live my life in this city, I want to tie my life with you. I feel that with guys in yeshiva, I feel that, I don't care. People come, people insecure, this is my chevra. I'll link in. This one will say, that was, I'm linked in. And Hashem says to us, this is my chevra. That's Rosh Hashanah. If you hear Rosh Hashanah, He's Zechraynos, He's busy. We're Mamlechem, and He's busy with us. He says, this is my chevra. These Yidden who I asked them to blow the shofar, b'ma b'shofar. But you have to have Malchi as Zechraynos. We're thinking about Him as Malchus. You have to be willing, you have to remember, He's the Melech. Bittul, an Akedah of sorts. Bittul of your own Avodah, willingness to part with your Avodah. That's the Akedah. There's something bigger than your Avodah. That's Malchus. Very hard. There's something bigger than your Avodah. You have to be willing to let go of your Avodah. Mm-hmm. I said over the story to you many times. It's one of the most wild stories I experienced. I think we can find in our lives time that we had to give up our Avodah. We have to understand that Hashem is bigger than our Avodah. That's an Akedah. That's an Akedah of sorts. To give up your Avodah. You give up your Avodah. That's an Akedah. I saw people try to throw rocks at Rabbi Yasha. I didn't see them. I was in the Mir, and they came to get Bachram to protect the Gadol Adar to the Mir because people were trying to stone him. Why were they stoning him? Because they had an idealism to protect Kfaris. It's a big idealism. And Rabbi Yashiv gave a psak. They didn't like that the government can build in a Gevista Eifen, and they couldn't do an Akedah. Their own Avodah became bigger than the one they were serving. They had a mission. They started stoning Rabbi Yashiv. They couldn't do the Akedah. All your Avodah you give up in a second if Hashem wills it. That's an Akedah. That's Malchus. That's Kulei Malchus. But after Malchus, what's Hashem busy with? He wants the ayil. Zechraynos, He's counting our deeds, which means He wants my service. I then take the shofar, shal ayil, and I blow it, Amam Hashem. My own mitzvahs, my own deeds have a tremendous importance, because Hashem said so. Yeah, I think you could speak 50 hours. I could share Vart and Rosh Hashanah. It's important to boil it down because I want to live Rosh Hashanah now. You're my friends. You can walk out like Kalish. You're mamish. You're such a mean guy. After Rosh Hashanah, you tell us Rosh Hashanah. It's not that way. We're living in the period between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and there's a period that causes tremendous reimus. All the tshuva comes from that place of Rosh Hashanah. So we're living the period between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, so it's not too late at all to Chaz Rosh Hashanah. It's something that's driving us through these days. So let's talk about Mishaper our Maisim. Let's accept that Hashem wants us. Accept that God gave the ultimate validation. This is my crew. He shouts from the rooftops. We were coronating, He was being Zeicher. This is my crew, Hashem shouted. So okay, let's go. Let's live up to that. We're His crew. That's a lot to live up to. So let's fix our Maisim. Let's be Mishaper our Maisim. Then we'll talk about what it means to come to Yom Kippur.